Today on Two Guys on a Porch, we're excited to drink what we're drinking today, which is Old Fitzgerald.
Legendary.
And very, very old Fitzgerald in one case. Very special offering. And we're going to talk about something pretty significant today, the joys and challenges of parenting adult children. And if you're adult children listening, just know what we're going through. Welcome to Two Guys on a Porch. 1, 2, 3.
Welcome to Two Guys on a Porch. I'm Jason. This is Bradford. As always, we have my trusty hunting dog who's currently taking a nap. She's bored with us, I guess. No non-discriminating petting today, so she's chilling out. Life is complicated, so what do? We sit on the porch with some fellowship sticks, a glass filled with something with the flavor of friendship, and we talk about life. Occasionally we figure something out, but we always have a great time. Today, I am super excited about this episode. We have talked about this episode at length because I procured a bottle of very, very old Fitzgerald. We bought through a charity auction, JDRF, a tasting at the Whiskey House. It is another charitable organization here in Nashville that raises money by selling tastings to other charitable. They give the tasting to other charitable organizations. Those organizations auction it off or sell it off to generate money for their charity, in this case, JDRF, Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. And so we bought seats of this tasting. They were very generous, they being JB, who owns it, and Moss Morrissey, a very knowledgeable expert on bourbon.
Our tasting host, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. He would be a great person to have on our podcast. You're talking about somebody who could school us. Woof. But Moss was very generous in his tasting, and he took you and I to the side, and he gave us a taste of, they have a bottle of very, very old Fitzgerald there. We were tasting all sorts of different things, but we had some, he took us to the side because we were truly bourbon fans. He was generous, gracious to us, and had us taste what was I believe, a 10-year bottled bond Fitzgerald, very, very old Fitzgerald. And at the time, my good friend Bradford said, this is the best bourbon he's ever tasted. So me being a dutiful friend, that was blood sin. I was on the hunt. I was going to find a bottle of very, very old Fitzgerald for my old friend Bradford. So I went after it relentlessly, dog on the trail, and I found a bottle of it. It was not easy, nor was it inexpensive. It was very expensive, but we have procured a bottle. Now, not only that, I'm always one to go over and beyond and above. This has been aged 12 years, so it's 2 more years than what we originally tasted. And so we have not opened this. This is going to be a first tasting for us, and we're going to compare it to other old Fitzgeralds. It's legendary. This is back in the day, Julian Pappy Van Winkle. Senior, this is the man, right? Pappy, back in the day when he was running Stitzel-Weller, excuse me. Stitzel-Weller, excuse me. Thank you for the correction.
How much have you had to drink before we started?
Never enough. Stitzel-Weller, when he was running it, he had in his catalog Pappy Van Winkle back then, but that was not his flagship. What was the flagship? Old Fitzgerald. That was what Pappy was most proud of at the time when he had his old 23-year-old Pappy, 20-year-old Pappy back then. His flagship brand was the Old Fitzgerald. So we have a bottle this bottle was barreled when he was still alive. He died in 1965 at the age of 91 years old. This was barreled when he was still around, bottled after his death. But this is his mash bill, his bourbon, his juice. Not only do we have that, we also have a bottle of the 13-year-old Old Fitzgerald. This is the 25th anniversary bottle for Heaven Hill. Heaven Hill now owns Old Fitzgerald. Heaven Hill suffered a massive fire, And this is their commemorative bottle for that. And guess what? It is now the 2025 Whiskey of the Year. High praise indeed.
No kidding.
So we have a great episode. Wow.
I have never seen you so excited to drink something, even going back to our Pappy episode, because I haven't been able to get a word in edgewise. Just you just going on about this great whiskey.
I'm ebullient. Well, you know, it's like life, right? I mean, it's one thing if you go out and, I don't know, you catch the big fish. It's another thing to see your kid do it. And you're not my kid at all, but you're my good friend. And so if I can do something for you that makes you happy, wow, that just makes me happy.
It's funny because I'm sitting here and I'm so excited for you to get to experience all three of these old Fitzgerald. I mean, these are, they're beautiful bottles. These are Decanter series bottles. If you're listening and you can't see them, the Decanter series that Old Fitzgerald is known for nowadays, they are beautiful. And these, you know, we've had episodes where we've had very approachable and affordable whiskeys. These are not.
No.
The Old Fitzgerald annual releases they have, and it is an homage to the day when Stitzel-Weller owned it, and they had acquired that distillery and name in 1933. Right at the end of Prohibition, but the Old Fitzgerald name goes back to John E. Fitzgerald, founded in 1870. And I think it had a medicinal license to make whiskey through Prohibition. But when Stitzel-Weller bought it, which was Julian Winkle, Pappy Van Winkle, he changed the mash bill. He put the whisper of wheat, as he described it. And
that's what Weller is famous for.
That's exactly right. And so Heaven Hill, which is most notable, they're a huge distillery, and they produce more bottled and bond than any distillery in the country, which all three of these are. They do that as an homage to the original Pappy, and it's one of their few wheated mash bills. Now, the mash bill for the Old Fitzgeralds that we're going to try are 20% wheat and 68% corn, and the remaining malted barley. And it almost goes without saying that malted barley is in whiskey, but it's the grain that generates the fermentation procedure.
Yeah.
And so there's always barley. And we say malted because it has to be malted to begin the process of breaking down the enzymes and those things.
Partially malted just means it's partially sprouted. That's just
right.
Fancy doctor words, if you will, fancy distiller words for partially sprouted.
So, you know, Julian Van Winkle was not much on releasing mash bills, as Buffalo Trace, who now owns the Weller product today, they don't release their mash bill. It's rumored that the only difference in the Very Very Old that we're trying today and the other Old Fitzgerald is it's still 20% wheat. It's 70% corn versus 68. That's really the only difference. Probably not going to be a big difference in the profile of what we're tasting. But, yeah, I'm telling you, you're so excited to taste this. You were so excited to get it because of that experience we had. And to expound on that story a little bit, because you guys were very generous in your donation, we got to kind of taste whatever we wanted to. Yeah. And I said, Moss came up, he said, anything else you want to try before we finish? And I said, you know, I saw a bottle of Old Fitzgerald Bottled and Bond, and I know generally they're not a big deal if you can find them, but you can't find them.
No.
So I'd love to try one. And he said, I'll do you one better. And he took us into the library where they've got their higher end. And I had seen this bottle. It was opened, but it was well corked. And it was that 10 years you referenced. And I remember going and getting, like, Jason, come here. We've got to try this.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was an amazing experience. And so you presented this bottle for us to try on our Pappy New Year episode. So if you want to go back and see that, where we tried all of the high-end Pappies, the 15, the 20, and the 23, and you presented this bottle for a future episode, and today is that episode.
Yeah, we finally get to taste it. The Whiskey House experience was really neat. It is truly a speakeasy. If you buy a seat, when you buy it, you don't get the address, right? You get the address when you're about to show up. It's a nondescript building. Tens of thousands of people drive by their place every day. It's on a busy street here in Nashville, and you would never know it. But when you walk in, It's literally, not figuratively, literally wall-to-wall bottles stacked as much as you can. It's organized. They have a Tennessee room. They have a Kentucky room. And you know, there's the Willett, there's the Blantons, there's the Pappy, but it's everything. And they're a unique organization. The unique quality about bourbon is or whiskey in general, you can open the bottle, taste it, recork it, just put the cork back in it, and it's still good. You can't do that with wine. Once you open the wine, you get the oxidation, and the taste flavor changes over time. You do some things to save the flavor of the wine. People argue whether it changes, but regardless, not so with bourbons or whiskeys of any sort. That's why in the Wild Wild West, back in the day, they had whiskeys. They didn't have beer because beer couldn't travel, wine couldn't travel, whiskeys could. And so it would survive the stagecoach journey out west. Same thing here. So they can open the bottle, or somebody can donate a half-open bottle, and it's still good. And then they use that power for good, if you will. And when you walk in there, they've crowdsourced all these bottles. People donate bottles to their organization, and then they turn around and donate it to other charitable organizations. A unique concept. Hats off to JB for thinking of it.
Yeah, and we have been invited by the Whiskey House and JB they have a back porch, and we have been invited to film one of our episodes at the Whiskey House. We look forward to doing that at some point in the future.
Indeed.
On their porch.
Yeah.
So join us when we do Two Guys on a Porch at the Whiskey House. So we'll be excited to do that. And before we get into tasting this, we've talked it to death.
Yeah, I'm excited.
But I love the episode topic too. And by the way, we procured our fellowship sticks from Mission Cigar and Social down in Spring Hill and Franklin. These are Padron 60th anniversary, and they are amazing sticks. And by the way, if you go try to get one of these yourself, you're paying for it. It's $75. And we've had some expensive sticks before from Padron. We had the Padron y Fuente y Padron Legend. That was $200 a stick. Great cigar. And we've also had the Padron 50th, which was great. And then this, the 60th anniversary, this is amazing.
As I recall, I like that those $200 sticks, but this has a more mellow, almost sweet, smoky taste to it. I like this stick much better than the Fuente and Padron versions of each other.
Yeah, and we've got two pours here today. We're going to open the third, yes. And if you've got to watch this episode just for the honor of opening this on the show. But let's circle back to the topic we haven't even touched on, and that is parenting adult children. And both of us are an age and stage in our life now where our children are adults for the most part. I think
yes.
You and I, you've got one heading to college. My last one is in college, and we've got some that are out on their own and various stages of life. I have a grandchild now.
Grandpa.
Yes. And, it's when you're young and you have the energy to parent your children, you don't realize all the mistakes you're making. Life moves fast.
Indeed.
And what is that phrase? The days are long and the years are short.
Exactly.
So true. What do you do when your children become adults and they may or may not seek your advice on life decisions, where they're living their life and they're not seeking it? What do you do?
Well, and the temptation is when they were young, you just tell them, do this, do that, moving to the next subject. You can't do it when they're young adults. They've got to, you can offer your advice to them, but they are their own decision makers at that age. And you just can't tell them, no, don't do that. Because, well, if you do, you can do it, but it doesn't meet with the expectations you hope. They usually push back against that.
Well, the roles change when they're little, and you see them running out toward a road. You grab them and snatch them away from danger. You see them about to touch a hot stove and you pull their arm back. You're protecting your children from decisions that could
I
harm
don't know.
them.
Do you do that? Do you let them, put the knife in the electric socket? It
Well,
hurts like hell. You won't do that again.
Well, at some point you do, I think.
Yeah.
That role changes from, yes, you're protecting them to educating them. Like, yes, you could get harmed or hurt by doing this, but not permanently so, but enough you'll remember not to do that again.
That which does not kill you makes you stronger.
Somebody ought to sing a song about that. Yeah. Wasn't that a Kelly Clarkson song?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll go with that. So, and then, as they enter high school and college, it changes into more of a coaching role where you're trying to direct them, and particularly since they don't want to even talk to you, and you're living in the world of grunts.
Yeah.
And they attempt, or at least attempted with me, to call me bruh, spelled B-R-U-H. And I'm like, I'm not your bruh. I'm your father. That's not changing.
It's spoken with that certain attitude and eye roll.
Yeah, and of course it's monosyllabic like every other conversation that takes place with a teenager. Yeah, so bruh. And so finally they figure out that maybe you weren't as stupid as they thought you were.
Yeah, exactly.
Or at least you hope they reach that point.
There's no substitute for experience.
Yeah, so that's the thing, is we gain experience and we see them become adults, and then we see them make decisions that just seem strange to us. When do you step in, or do you?
And that's not a pat answer. I mean, you got to play each situation for what it is. But even if you know what the right answer is, and you tell them that that's not going to be the right thing, there's something to be learned by failed experiences. If we only had successes in our life, I don't know if we would learn as much. I think I've learned more from my failed experiences than my successes.
Yeah, I think, and I want to get back to this, but I'll throw it out there so I can remember to come back to it. But, we wanted to raise our children, and I think I can speak for you too, raise godly children with Christian values who make decisions as adults using that framework to do
Right.
so. And so then you watch them, because you observe. You can't step in, or it's very difficult to. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But let's go ahead and start the tasting of these Old Fitzgerald. And the first one we're going to try is the 19-year-old bottled in bond. I've smelled it, and on the nose, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. It's not as you would think it would be darker being aged 19 years. Sitting in the barrel for 19 years. Think about that. 19 years.
Would it be over oaked? I mean, that's the question on Pappy 23. A lot of people say, no, over oaked.
Yeah. But as we saw or tasted in our last episode with the old Dominic, they aged theirs 2 to 3 years. And
it's got to be at least 4 if it's bottled in bond, which that was.
That's true. Yeah, you're correct. A lot of their stuff, though, they age only 2 or 3
Right.
years. But you're right. You are correct. That was aged 4 years. It had that wet oak taste to it. I liked it. You didn't. But you would think just being that new in the barrel, it wouldn't have that. And it would be the longer aging barreled bourbons that would have more of an oak taste. I do not detect that at all. I taste the char, not the oak.
Yeah, and what aging does is it provides the complexity. We talk about, that's a word I use a lot. And to me, that's where something is really good. It's when it achieves flavors that really meld together well. They're almost so hard to distinguish from another because it's just so balanced.
Yeah, and you start to pick up things that they're not in there. I mean, I taste a little bit. Well, first of all, it's not as dark as you would think being aged for 19 years.
But it is dark.
It is dark. But 19 years, I think the 23 is darker than that. Maybe my memory is incorrect. But
and I just tasted this. It's remarkable.
It is. It's got a great nose. It has a little bit of, in the mid palate, it's a little bit of apple, a little bit of spice, a lot of cherry, char. It's a very full mouth, oily, nice finish. There is nothing but smoothness and nice sipping bourbon here. This is wow, I can drink this for the rest of my life and be happy.
Well, the finish on it is unbelievable. Yeah, that struck me the most. You know, what it hits your mouth with initially, it's good. Mid palate, good. Finish, wow.
You taste it in your cheeks. I mean, it's all the way. When people talk about full mouth tasting,
Yeah, it is full.
It's everywhere in your mouth. It's just wow. This is
Yeah, and let's talk about. We said these are high end. These are expensive. Let's talk about what they are. The 19-year, the 13-year, which is the whiskey of the year. These are $1,500 to $2,500 a bottle.
When you can find them,
right? It's only secondary market.
Yeah, you're at the mercy of the secondary. There's a little bit of competition there, but when you get to this very, very old Fitzgerald, and barreled in 1957, or excuse me, barreled in 1957. How many bottles of that you can find? It's amazing.
And we're about to open one.
Yeah, exactly. How many times you get to taste something like that? Not very many.
And it cost a little more.
It did. It did. But we're not going to.
As you said, you were a dog on a hunt, though, to track that down.
Yeah.
I'm
stubborn.
You're Pappy 23 prices when we get into that. So whatever you're seeing.
It was less than a 20. Pappy 23 is just built up because of its popularity. I don't think people know about this. We'll taste it today. If you offer me a bottle of 23-year-old Pappy versus a bottle of this very, very old Fitzgerald, I'll pick the very, very old every single time. Not the one we're about to open. Even this actually 19-year-old, the bottle and bottle, I like it better. It's, Pappy's great. It has that cinnamon spice to it. But man, this is better.
Well, I'd have to have the other next to it to try, but I will say this is amazing whiskey. And I appreciate you sharing this. I mean, this is amazing that we get to do this together.
Well, this is what Two Guys on a Porch is all about. It's about having the flavor of friendship on a porch, talking about life and trying to figure things out. What is life without friends? And so be sure to like, subscribe, comment, let us know. But this is what we do. I mean, who wants to enjoy this at home by themselves on a Tuesday night? No, you want to be out here, in this case in a barn, on a rainy Tennessee afternoon. We like doing this together.
Well, and I've been asked, and was asked recently, like, is there like, do you lose something? Like, does it hurt when you open a bottle like that? I'm like, no, the whole point is to share it. I mean, they're made to be shared and enjoyed together, and that's to your point. That's why we're here on the porch.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're holding the 13. You're about to try the whiskey of the year.
Whiskey year. You're talking about, what would be the job you would like? What's your dream job? We
want you to determine the whiskey of the year. Taste everything that's really good.
Yeah, exactly. People send, it's an application process. It's a whole thing. You can go online, figure it out yourself. But there's a whole, you submit your application, you send in your bourbon, and they hope to win the prize. Wow, what a job. That's a gig right there. You'd like to set that up, but maybe we can figure out how people could send in their bourbons and hope we taste them on our show. Wow, and determine they're the best. I would like that gig.
Yeah, so I'm reaching over because I looked at that 19-year-old. It was bottled in 2022. It was released in 2022. The whiskey that we're tasting, the whiskey 2025 whiskey of the year, was bottled in the fall of 2024. So just released to stores.
Yeah.
Well, or just released.
Just released.
You cannot go find it.
It's not going to make it to the shelf, yeah.
Right. I'm curious. I tasted it. I'm curious what your thoughts are relative to what we just tried before.
Again, it's a lot of vanilla on the nose. It's a little spicier. It almost tastes a little bit hotter. I haven't looked at the proof.
Well, it's bottled in bond, so it's going to be 100.
Yeah, there you go. It is. I dare say I kind of like the 19-year-old better. Me
too.
Yeah. I hate to push back against whiskey a year, but I think the 19-year-old there is better.
Well, it could be as simple as the 19 year is not an option.
Right. They did.
It's 3 years old. It's not available to compare
with
the 13. And this very well could be the best thing offered this year.
That's right, and that's what that competition is. It's the current year.
Right. Yeah, and this is amazing.
Yeah. Oh, it is.
But I don't think, frankly, I don't think it compares to the 19 year. It's amazing whiskey.
Yeah.
But that 19 year was something special.
Yeah, it is. Again, it has the same thing. It's very full mouth,
Yes.
oily finish. You taste it everywhere in your mouth. Your teeth taste it. It's got a great finish. It lingers with you in a good way. You can sip on this and be quite happy.
Yeah, the separation, I think, for me between this 13 year and the 19 year is the finish.
Yeah.
I think that 19-year-old was perfect on the finish, and this 13 has a little something hot. I hate to use that word, but that's almost, I taste a little bit of alcohol on the finish, and the other I just really didn't.
If you had a choice, I'm sure the Heaven Hill people did this as well. They produced some of this and put it out as their VVS. It's the red label. That's how you can distinguish it. It's their anniversary, 25th anniversary from their big fire, and they lost entire rick houses of barrels. It was devastating to them. They survived somehow, and this is their commemorative version for that. This obviously survived, but it's great stuff. But I think they probably held some back out to continue to age.
Yeah, and just, the history part of this is the Old Fitzgerald being owned by Heaven Hill took place in 1999. It went through, Stitzel-Weller sold in 72. We referenced that prior when the Van Winkle family sold it. It went through a couple of different ownership groups and then landed with Heaven Hill in 1999, and they've produced that as an homage, as we mentioned earlier. And before we get to
the opening,
I do want to circle back to having adult children. I referenced that idea of we've tried to raise godly children with Christian values. They make decisions accordingly. And I think about my son, and I had to let him make decisions that I thought, at least they were so odd. I'm not saying anything I hadn't mentioned before and not something he's aware of, but he gets out of school, he's got some money stashed, he goes and spends some time in Europe, travels the country, which makes perfect sense. And then he comes back and decides, I'm going to get married. He doesn't have a job. Oh, and then they're going to buy a house. He doesn't have a job. Oh, we're going to have a baby. They don't have a job. He doesn't have a job. So completely unconventional. He now has a great job. He's very happy. They're very happy. Beautiful grandson that I have. And it wasn't any decision that I would have made in that order. And yet, it worked for him. It is a little bit who he is from a personality standpoint. He's more entrepreneurial, I think, in his approach to life and the world. That's just the way he's wired. And so I think if I had stepped in and tried to, you have to go get a job.
Yeah.
I would have crushed that spirit a little bit.
I know if I was his fiance or soon-to-be fiance's dad, and he came to me and said, Dr. Hubbard, would you allow me to have your daughter's hand in marriage? I'd be, that's great. Well, tell me about yourself. Or I hope I know him at that point, but tell me what you do for a living. Well, I don't have a job. What are your plans? I don't have plans. I would have concerns thereof.
His fiance, his soon-to-be fiance at the time's father was dying of cancer. And not long after that they met, that he did pass. And so they had that conversation. And I think the dad was less concerned about those kind of temporal things as to, do you have a job? What's your job? What are you going to do? How are you going to support my daughter? And he was really focused on, what's the character of this man that intends to marry my daughter? And he because he had little time, he bore it down pretty succinctly to that thing. And he loved my son. And he knew the character that he was. And I have great respect for my son as a man. He's different. He's made decisions differently.
Yeah.
But as a man, the character he is, I would trust him implicitly.
Well, I've heard it called before is you bet on the player, not the game. And you do that with
Yeah, well put.
investing. You do that investing. You say you have some money to invest. You want to start on an upstart company. You know, they have every upstart company has a great business plan, but whether it becomes successful is more based upon the person running the company than the actual business himself. You know, one could argue that, I don't know, say Apple their success was based upon the entrepreneurial spirit, the dreams, the drive of Steve Jobs, not the fact that they had a personal personal PC. You know, Microsoft was out, lots of things were out, but you bet on the player, not the game.
I think that's a great way to put it. And I think too, you know, other ways in which you guide your children as they become adults, the college search. You know, your role, I think, as a parent in that regard is expose them to things, and then let them make a decision that works for them. May not be the decision I would make, but they're wired differently.
Yeah.
And I've got kids that are artists. You know, my oldest is a poet, and so the decisions she makes about her future and school and vocation, they're completely different than what I would choose.
Yeah.
But what works for her, to your point, I trust her to pursue the things that are gonna make her happy and successful. You know, we've both got kids in med school, so I do think it's providing them the guidance to make the decisions that fits the way they're wired and built.
Yeah.
And the other thing is just encourage them to do things that give them opportunities.
Yeah.
Make the grade so you've got an opportunity. Do the things that you get published so that you've got opportunity, like create the opportunities for yourself.
Yeah, I think if you work hard, if you go off in a direction, you can't go wrong. And what I mean by that is even if you go off in a direction that fails, you learn something from that. So even though it in and of itself is not successful, it's successful because you learn what not to do and you go on to whatever else.
Yeah.
For me, my oldest, she just graduated med school. She's trying to figure out residency and what specialty does she want to go into. That's a life-changing thing. This is what your occupation is going to be for the rest of your life. Potentially, it's not to say you can't change, but you know what she picked she picked ER medicine. That's not what I wanted to do, but I'm not her. And moreover, it wouldn't, neurosurgery would not work for her, but ER medicine's perfect for her. It's the excitement, it's the challenge of it, it's the every day's a new adventure. She likes the chaos of it. You walk in the door, you're not sure what you're going to see that day at work. So she thought about other specialties. She thought about anesthesiology. She thought about medicine. But, me saying just go do this because of whatever reason, that would be betraying her to push my biases on her. She's got to figure out what she wants herself, and that's difficult.
Well, and this is not to say that I got it right. I think there are a few things, and hopefully some big things that I did in that regard to be able to parent them well as adults. But I continue to make mistakes as their father. I have to go back and apologize. So please, for those of you listening, watching, don't hear me say that, oh, I've figured this out. I've done it right.
But, the only way to gain wisdom is through experience. The only way to gain experience is to make mistakes.
Yeah.
So if you really want to gain experience easily is learn from other people's mistakes. So I think our children learn from our mistakes. So, again, success is good, but you learn more from your mistakes.
So we're not going to make a mistake by opening this bottle.
No, unless
You've
I
been
drop it somehow.
You've been cradling it over there like a baby.
my precious. So let's open this sucker. Yeah, it's taken a long time.
And again, you have to be watching this episode to see the. I mean, how old is this bottle?
So
bottled in 1969, so that would make it 56 years old.
Wow. And it shows it. And also, I didn't have my pocket knife on me. Here we go. Ooh. Oh, the cork broke. Oh, my gosh.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so we're going to have to get a cork screw opener. Yeah, you'll go figure that.
Yeah, because you don't want to push that in there. We are going to have to.
Yeah,
we're not tasting that today.
Yeah, no, hell, we're not.
All right, let's pause.
All right, we're back again after a very brief break. So and break is the right word, indeed, no pun intended. So the cork just, when I twisted like you would any bottle, the cork just broke off on me. It's kind of a good thing in a silver cloud type of way, a silver lining of the cloud in a way, because when you buy something secondhand, you wonder, is this just an old bottle, empty bottle that somebody refilled and they sold it to you being a chump? The fact that this cork just basically broke apart makes me think, hey, we do have an old bottle indeed.
Well, and to that point, they've noticed on the secondary markets with Pappy, the bottles are numbered, and people have bought empty bottles and then refilled them with something cheap and then recorked it, and it's not authentic. And
Right.
so to your point with the silver lining, we definitely have something.
I'll give you a generous pour, my friend.
Yes, you did. Wow, look at the color on that.
So,
wow.
Lafitte Rothschild was famous for being the Koch brothers, right? One of the Koch brothers, Koch, K-O-C-H, yeah. Was a big wine collector, big in Lafitte's, and he's a guy who knew Lafitte's, and because Lafitte Rothschild bottles went for $10,000 or whatever, crazy stuff. People were into counterfeits, and so that was a thing. It's a big, you can see it on the internet. It was a big thing. I don't know that that's happened to bourbons except for maybe Pappy yet.
But this is certainly not counterfeit.
Oh yeah, so this cork just this was not recorked. This is not a new cork. It just busted and it fell in there. So here we are.
Wow, you get your nose in there and it's caramel, butter, vanilla. I mean, this smells like what bourbon is supposed to smell like.
To the flavor of friendship.
Absolutely. Cheers to
Cheers.
that. And the color on this, by the way, this is brown.
Yeah.
Compared to the amber color of the others, this is brown.
Yes. This is distinctly darker. If we were doing a blind taste test, you could identify it by the color alone.
So, yeah, I talked about what I got on the nose. What did you detect?
Brown sugar, caramel. This has a big, big nose.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So this is good. A good, so hits you instantly with a lot of caramel, a lot of smoke.
Wow, talk about a full mouthful. This is
exactly,
as my wife says, this is all over your mouth.
You are tasting this with your teeth and cheeks.
Golly, that's so good.
And the interesting thing is the mid palate to finish is the same. It lingers with you. And it doesn't change. Most bourbons, whiskeys, it changes from that initial taste to the finish, but this does not change. It's that big start, big finish, oily, full mouth all the way through. Not so much cinnamon, not much spice, lots of caramel, sugar. It's almost not quite sweet, but it's getting to sweet.
Man, this is almost a visceral experience. I tasted that first thing, and as you're talking, I'm picturing Pappy himself being involved in the process of barreling this and distilling this, and it's sitting in those barrels from when I was born.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just crazy
So
that we're sitting here drinking this.
Yes. So Pappy was famous for saying that sell bourbon at a profit if we can, a loss if we must, but always find bourbon.
Well, he did that.
Yes, and always find bourbon. That was his mantra. His great granddaughter released a book with that title. What was her name? Sally Van Winkle Campbell. But wow, this is good stuff.
So, did the sale of Stitzel-Weller, was that precipitated in 1972 by the decline in bourbon. I mean, it just completely went out of popularity in the 70s.
From what I understand, at that point, Julian III was running it, but other family members had ownership, and it was a family decision and pressure from the family to sell it. Julian III sold Stitzel-Weller at that point, and it went. It's owned by Heaven Hill now, but it went through multiple companies, and so it was under pressure by the family to sell it. They kept back.
They had access to their old barrels. He was
right.
Able to
They
release
kept
them.
they kept the Pappy Van Winkle stuff, but Old Fitzgerald was one that they sold.
Yeah, I feel like the episode needs to end, and we don't say anything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, here it is.
Yeah. So this, it's almost sweet. It's just that's the unique thing to this.
And yet it's not.
No, it's right, and it's a
That, I think, describes the complexity of it so well.
right. Your mouth is just confused
This is
about
a
what
different
it's
experience.
Yeah, you're confused about what you're tasting here. You have that sweet, a cherry, smoky.
So is this the
orange
best
peel.
whiskey you've ever had?
I think so.
So, it forces us to think we've got to go back and do a blind taste test at some point with Pappy 23 and this and that 19 that we liked so much, and just compare some of these that are just incomparable, right?
Yeah. This, you will be able to. This compared to a Pappy does not have that spice, cinnamon. I believe the Pappy has some rye in it. I don't know what the mash bill of this was. Nobody knows what it is. But this, I bet, does not have rye in it. This is, or minimal rye, I should say.
Yeah, I think it was distilled without rye, as these old Fitzgerald don't have rye. It's something. It is something different. That is for
complex. Going back to our topic, I think that's where our children are. They are a version of us, but they're more complex than that. They are, I like to think, a better version of myself.
I hope so.
Yeah, I know they are. My children are a better version than me. My children are, I'm very proud of them, and they're better than I am. But you might have the same DNA or similar DNA, but they are complex and something different.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with that,
wow,
as we sip maybe the most amazing whiskey we've ever tried, and thank you for joining us on Two Guys on a Porch.
Thank you for hanging out with us. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, let us know what you think, and join us next week for Two Guys on a Porch. Life is much better with friends, a drink and cigar, and some Two Guys on a Porch swag. Let us know what your drink and cigar of choice is at twoguysonaporch.com, and you'll be entered into a drawing to get some Two Guys on a Porch swag